Hi, it's me, Jacqueline. Welcome to my channel. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to my channel and join me at Patreon. Link in the description. Back home, it didn't take long for Mike to settle back into their apartment. He had really missed his own bed and cuddling with Masumi. The studies for their master's degrees went along very well, both of them always close to the top in their class. At the start of his final semester, Mike was called into his advisor's office. Dr. Wolf had been his advisor since his junior year, and they were actually friends. Mike showed up at the appointed hour. "Hello, Mike," Dr. Wolf started out. "Have a seat." "Hi, Dr. Wolf. What's up?" "Oh, nothing much. Just some good news." "Good news?" "The group that you interned with in DC was very impressed with you. And they wanted to be first in line to offer you a job when you graduated. So, they sent this letter to me to pass on to you." Dr. Wolf handed Mike a sealed envelope. Mike kind of just looked at it for a minute, then opened it and read the letter. He looked at Dr. Wolf. And Dr. Wolf said, "Congratulations. You'll be the first graduate from this program that was offered a job directly with this department, if you decide to take it. We do have other graduates working there, but they had to work their way in." "Wow! Dr. Wolf, this is too much. I'm going to have to talk with Masumi before I make a decision. She was going to do her doctoral work here." "Yes, I know. But there are some very fine colleges in the Washington area. Remember, you don't need to say yes or no to them right away. They just wanted to be the first to offer you a job. You will get others. Just let them know that you're interested." Mike thanked Dr. Wolf and headed home. Masumi was at class, and it was his turn to make dinner. He put together one of her favorite dinners and even a bottle of her favorite wine. She arrived home just as he was finishing cooking. She helped him put everything on the table, and as usual they sat next to each other at the table. She could tell that he was excited about something, but was going to wait for him to bring it up. After they had cleared the table, he poured more wine and handed her the letter. She asked, "What's this?" "Read it." She looked at the return address on the letter and looked at Mike with a mixture of surprise, excitement, and concern. She slowly removed the letter and read it. Looked at Mike and read the letter again. Her look turned to one of excitement. She got up, sat in his lap, and kissed him. "Honey," she said, "this is fantastic. I'm so proud." "Easy. We need to talk about this. You planned on doing your doctoral here." "Honey, this is more important. There are good schools in Washington." "Have you told anyone else?" "No, just Dr. Wolf. But he's the one that told me." The letter was sent to him. He said that they wanted to get their foot in the door with a job offer before anyone else did. "I don't have to tell them yes or no right away. Just let them know that I'm interested." "Are you?" "Very much so. That department does some very intriguing things." Dr. Wolf was right. Mike received other interesting job offers, but none that were as good as the first one. He and Masumi made the decision to accept the offer from this certain government department. So, he contacted them, and they sent him a packet of forms to be filled out. They needed his life story and a bunch of references. He was told that all of his references, relatives, and neighbors would be contacted during a background check. As he finished, he sat back with a little bit of a concerned look. Masumi looked at him and asked, "What's the matter? Got a question that you can't answer?" "No, not that. I just had a sinking feeling." "What?" "Some of these people on the references list know about my other self. I'm kind of worried that it might affect my getting this job." "Honey, if you're supposed to work for them, you will. And don't let it worry you. We'll cross that bridge when, and if, we come to it." "I guess you're right." He finished up the packet of questions and sent it off. He heard from a number of people that they had been contacted, some by mail and others directly. One day he was working in the psych department, and Dr. Ruth called him into her office. "Have a seat, Mike," she said. "I had a visit the other day from the people that are doing your background checks. And one of the things they asked was if you had, for lack of a better word, kinks. And seeing who these people are, I told them the truth. Well, at least part of the truth." "The truth?" "Yeah, about you coming to my party dressed as a very passable geisha. But I didn't tell them that you had told me about being a crossdresser." I felt that this was patient doctor privilege. He sunk down in his chair with a very downtrodden look on his face. Dr. Ruth continued, Mike, don't worry. The girl didn't even blink an eye when I said it. And just continued on with other questions. I'm sorry, but I figured that I'd better tell them. I was afraid of this. It's not your fault. Damn. 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 He got up and slowly walked out of her office. Later that day, as he walked into the apartment, he was met at the door by Masumi. She made a big fuss over him, trying to cheer him up. He said, Dr. Ruth called you. Didn't she? Yes, she did. She is really concerned about you. Did she tell you everything? Yes. She's a good friend. You're right. It's not her fault. I've screwed this up. Big time. Honey, don't be this way. You don't know anything yet. Please don't be negative about this. I'll try. Over the next couple of weeks, Mike was still down. And Masumi did her best to keep his spirits up. Then one afternoon, the phone rang and Mike answered, Hello. Yes, this is Mike Gifford. Yes, hello, Mr. Warner. Yes. Yes. I can do that. Yes. Fine. Yes, I'll see you tomorrow morning. When Masumi came home, he was sitting in the kitchen with a puzzled look on his face. What's the matter? She asked. I got a telephone call from Mr. Warner, the head of that department in Washington, this afternoon. She thought, God no. They turned him down. But said in a positive tone, what did he want? They want me to come to Washington tomorrow for some tests and interviews. That's great. Tomorrow. That's kind of short notice. I guess it's just the way they do things. It may be a good sign. If they weren't interested, they could have just sent a form letter saying so. True. Very early the following morning, Masumi drove Mike to the airport. He was dressed in his one and only conservative suit. She could tell he was both nervous and excited. He stopped by the airline courtesy desk, and his round-trip ticket was waiting for him. She walked with him as far as she could, gave him a big hug and kiss, and whispered, I love you. And everything will be just fine. She watched the plane leave and drove back home. She prayed that everything would work out. That evening, she met his plane. It was a late flight and didn't get in until after 11. She watched everyone walk down the concourse. Mike was one of the last ones. She couldn't tell by the expression on his face what had happened. The only thing she could tell was that he was tired. He walked up to her and kissed her. They walked hand in hand out to the car without saying much. Once in the car, she looked at him and said, well? He took a letter out of his inner coat pocket, handed it to her, and said, read this. She took the letter, opened it, and read it. Her eyes got teary. She looked at Mike, threw her arms around his neck, and kissed him. Finally breaking the kiss, she was crying with happiness, and she said, see, I told you everything would work out. The letter was a formal job offer. She asked him, did you tell them yes? What do you think? Of course I did. Again, she kissed him. On the way home, he filled her in on his day. How he was met at the airport by Mr. Warner and taken to a breakfast meeting with a number of people from the department. It was basically a friendly, get-to-know-each-other meeting. Then it was off to Mr. Warner's office for number tests. Nothing much out of the ordinary. Then he had a number of one-on-one meetings with various people. The last one was the one he kind of dreaded. It was with a psychologist. They talked for a long time about a number of things, including his relationship with Masumi, his relationship with his parents, and hers. Then the subject he dreaded came up, his dressing as the geisha for the party. He confessed to the psychologist that he was a crossdresser, that only Masumi, his parents, his brother and sister, Masumi's parents and sister, and Dr. Halloran were the only ones that knew. They talked about it for a long time. That evening, before catching his flight home, Mr. Warner had taken him out to a late dinner. They had talked about the day, his tests, and his meetings. Mr. Warner finally brought up the crossdressing. He had told Mike that in most cases, if they knew about it ahead of time, like they did about his, it wasn't a problem. And that it only became a problem if they didn't know about it and things became compromised. In fact, there were a few people in the department that were crossdressers, and only a very few people knew about them. As they were sitting enjoying dessert, Mr. Warner had handed Mike the envelope. Mike had opened it, and it contained 2 copies of the letter that he has shown Misumi. Mike needed to accept or refuse the job offer by signing on one of 2 lines. Mr. Warner had told Mike that he didn't need to make up his mind right away. But Mike told Mr. Warner that he had already discussed this with Misumi and that they had decided that he should accept the job if it was offered. So, Mike had signed the acceptance line on 1 copy of the letter and had given it to Mr. Warner. A couple of weeks later, they took a trip to Washington to see about various things, an apartment, college for her, and he needed to meet with others at the department. They found a very nice brownstone apartment in the Georgetown area of Washington. It was 2 stories, had 2 bedrooms, a nice kitchen, dining area, and living room. It also had a garage off a back alley. They took it without looking at any others. She visited the 2 or 3 colleges that she was interested in, and as luck would have it, decided to apply to Georgetown University, which was only a short walk from the apartment. Please subscribe for the next part and visit my Patreon page for early access.